Я вийшов на аплодисментах, використав цю штуку.
So I use this thing with the applause. Okay, so hi everyone, greetings, and I'd like to start with two small announcements. First of all, thank you for wearing masks. If you don't wear masks, I don't say thank you. Start wearing it first, and then I'll say thank you because we know all what's happening. So the second announcement, if you do need translation, at the reception, you can take your headset.
In that room. А тепер давайте до більш
Right now, a little bit more interesting stuff, the UN Day, and I really want right now you to outburst with applause. So I know that there are many people who do belong to this organization. Applause. So 76 years ago, Ukraine has become one of the co-founders of the organization, and since that time, every day, the UN is fighting poverty, inequality, climate change, trying to protect human rights in any part of the planet. And I think today you'll actually be convinced of that. So what UN is doing today in Ukraine, how it is related to all of us. So Asnat Ubrani, so the resident coordinator of UN and Ukrainian humanitarian coordinator, please.
Thank you. I hope you all have gotten your translation because unfortunately I still don't speak Ukrainian. But oops, I just got the translation from Ukrainian, which I don't need. Greetings to all the friends and colleagues, friends of the UN, and very delighted to welcome you, but also our guests who are joining us online to this UN Day celebration, which, as you know, is a day commemorating the adoption of the UN Charter in 1945, which still remains the foundation of international law and basis for all international relations. So I'm delighted that we'll have two partners from the government joining us, I believe, online. Unfortunately, First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs wanted to be here, but she was called, Emine Japarova was called to an urgent meeting. But I believe Valentin Skuratovsky will join from the Directorate General of International Relations, and also our very, very special friend in New York, joining us virtually will join us virtually, His Excellency Sergei Kislitsa, the permanent representative of Ukraine to the United Nations. So, colleagues, just a few words from me on this day as UN resident coordinator and humanitarian coordinator, speaking on behalf of all of the UN agencies, to say that we are living in such turbulent times, and this UN Day it really offers us an opportunity to reflect on the role of the UN and how can we do even better, even more to realize the 2030 agenda that offers us such a comprehensive solution to sustainable future of the planet, but also for targeted support to individual member states such as Ukraine. Let me say that as a founding member of the United Nations, Ukraine and the UN have enjoyed a very close and strong partnership for 75 years. And this partnership, well, now 76, and this partnership is reflected in the work of 18 UN funds, agencies, and programs across Ukraine who support the efforts, your efforts, the country's efforts to meet the sustainable development targets. COVID-19 has exposed the world's fragilities. We face simultaneously a devastating health crisis, the biggest global economic calamity since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Climate change that is threatening human well-being. There is erosion of human rights and weakening of international institutions. And the UN is the main platform for multilateralism. We understand the expectations that we are entrusted with. And on this day, this is a time for us to reaffirm our commitment to do our utmost to combat and to overcome these multiple crises. And we are guided these days by the recent Secretary General's report titled Our Common Agenda. And it guides us to actions necessary to accelerate implementation of development. And this includes renewing the social contract between government and its citizens to restore trust, to rely on science to fight pandemics, but also infodemics, to place human well-being and environment at the center of economic decisions, always keeping in mind how our decisions today will impact today's youth and future generations. And also so important that we shape policies and solutions based on young people's needs, their views, their ideas, through national listenings and foresight exercises. I want to mention that a recent UN report exposed the threats of child poverty and inequality in Ukraine that are very serious. And this tells us that along a lot of good progress, there are areas where inequalities are deepening in Ukraine. And we must take urgent action to address these through fairer society, stronger social protection, tackling corruption, being better prepared to confront global crises, and better listening to people, to the voices of people and young people in particular. Now, the UN cannot solve this, of course, none of us can solve this alone. And apart from UN leadership, what the planet needs are bright and committed leaders on the ground, responsible politicians, active civil society, innovative private sector, strong community leaders, engaged young people, and empowered women and girls. And this is exactly what the UN sees its priority in Ukraine, to support the country on its path to building a democratic, prosperous, and inclusive society. So to showcase our partnership, we will shortly hear during these TEDx speeches from active and responsible Ukrainians who, with support and partnerships and with the programs of the UN and development partners, are really making a difference in their own lives and the lives of their communities. These are examples of meaningful action at all levels, personal, community, regional, national, that help Ukrainian society to move forward and develop. I want to, I'm sorry that I'm not trained in TEDx style, so, but I do want to take a few minutes to just reflect on the UN's priorities in Ukraine as we move forward to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals together. And I see three main priorities for cooperation. So first, in our efforts to contribute to the Secretary General's what is called the Sustainable Peace Agenda, this requires a comprehensive, coordinated, and coherent approach that links all the political processes, safety and security issues, with strengthening of rule of law and human rights, and improving social service delivery and core government functions, and supporting economic revitalization and livelihoods. And our approach is to put people at the center of everything the UN does. And such a rights-based approach that is anchored in impartiality allows the 18 agencies to work across Ukraine so that Ukrainians may build better lives in a state that enjoys fundamental rights, security, and prosperity. And this helps create an enabling environment for peace, unity, and justice. And I would add that the concept, the Secretary General's Sustaining Peace Agenda is very different from conflict resolutions and all of the ongoing peace efforts that take, in the case of Ukraine, for example, in the Normandy format and the OSCE-led trilateral contact group. We are not involved in this political peace negotiation process, but we are advancing the overall peace agenda in Ukraine as something that is important to build a sustainable foundation once a political settlement of the conflict is reached. The second priority comes from the first, which is also to safeguard the gains made by structural reforms and the importance of communicating to the people more effectively to demonstrate to them what is the positive impact of reforms in their lives. And here I want to say that the UN is also co-chairing the International Development Group, and we are very involved in all of the work that the government working together with development partners are doing to advance decentralization of rule of law, education, social protection, environment, healthcare. Sadly need to remind you that right now the COVID situation remains severe. The daily caseload is at an all-time high. And so each and every one of you, I really want to appeal to you to try and do your utmost to convince more Ukrainians to vaccinate. This is so important for your own health, the health of your family, but the entire society, and it also will help to contribute to the recovery of the economy. And I also want at the same time to say that as we are working to combat this pandemic, we also need to ensure that basic services don't diminish, that they still continue, and that they're not disrupted, including, I would say, life-saving vaccination of children against deadly diseases such as polio or measles. And the third priority for us is the joint promotion of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all peoples and groups in Ukrainian society as a key principle in our daily lives and the cornerstone of sustainable peace and development in any society. We are now mapping all of those groups that are most left behind, that are more vulnerable in Ukraine, and so that we know how to reach them, who they are, who is most in need. And so we target our support to help them realize their human rights, including health, economic, and social rights. The important part of this agenda is gender equality, which is still very important to focus on in Ukraine. We will continuously advocate for and support the government and civil society and women in ensuring their meaningful participation and that their voices are heard at all levels, including the highest political levels, promoting women's peace and security agenda, strengthening women's economic security, prevention of gender-based violence, and deconstructing gender stereotypes. I want to say a word to express our admiration of the UN in Ukraine here and our pride to work in a country that is such a strong contributor itself to the UN's global agenda. From the UN's first day of existence, Ukraine has been a reliable partner, very involved and a friend of the UN. The UN sees Ukraine as a country of immense importance and with great potential to really be a champion for regional and global agendas that the UN is leading. As a founding member of the UN, Ukraine was one of those that drafted the UN Charter and was initiator and a driver behind many very important international treaties and conventions, and also a generous contributor to peacekeeping operations. In these unprecedented, very difficult times, this is a sign of your country's commitment to promote and protect human rights, contribute and shape the future of multilateral action in strong partnership with the United Nations. On our part, the UN has always stood by Ukraine, and we will continue to do so, continuing to support Ukraine's priorities, development priorities, including the wide-reaching transformational reform and helping to strengthen the compact between the state and its citizens by sharing our global experience and expertise. But of course, what we need to do most must be determined by Ukrainians themselves. And that is why today it is so great that we are listening to the voices of the people who are our partners on the ground. So with that, I think if we are ready, I would like to hand over to our friend, permanent representative of Ukraine to the United Nations, Mr. Sergei Kислitsa, to say a few words.
Так, чутно мене. Дякую, Оснат.
Thank you, Osnat. Please, do take your seat. So, Osnat Lubrani. It's not strange, but I'll tell you good morning right now. It might sound strange because in New York we have the morning and we have Mr. Kислitsa as a standing representative of Ukraine in the UN. So good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, dear Osnat. And yes, this is our advantage, of course, and disadvantage, because my working day starts at 5 a.m. when in Kiev we have what, like noon. But dear friends, we today all together mark this UN Day, and actually we'll have it on Sunday. And in New York on Sunday, we have so many events planned, and many representatives of various countries. So those who are more fit than I am, they will run in the park, and many other events will be there. So this day is a very important date. It's important not just for Ukraine, it's important for the world, and we have to remember, and we do not need to be ashamed when we remind about this day, because today we have so many holidays. Almost every day we have something, many national holidays, and Ukraine, of course, was the co-founder of the UN due to various historical events and peculiarities. Well, behind my back, we have this UN charter, you know, it's that this is the book. And we actually have the signature, please, of Ukrainian delegation, all the signatures, 3 signatures we have there. And we have to be proud that we do have these signatures in the book. So UN is criticized fairly, of course, criticized due to the lack of capacity to prevent international law violation and to actually act after the violation has been committed. So as Mr. Zelensky referred to UN, a lot of criticism there is for UN, but he also said that we criticize ourselves as well when we criticize UN. How UN works, what UN is, this is the responsibility of all of us, its effectiveness, and the responsibility of the heads of governments, diplomats, and of course of the citizens. Because UN is not just, this is not just about the diplomatic battle in the General Assembly. It's not just the Security Council, where one of the standing representatives still continues to promote the aggression against Ukraine. First of all, these are people, citizens of the countries which are members of the UN. So these are peoples, Ukrainians, Crimean Tatars. UN comprises all those who actually live in Ukraine, all these ethnic groups. UN has to work for the benefit of people, and we must remember it. So in 1947, in the Resolution General Assembly, and then we established the UN Day, by the way, the General Assembly mentioned that what is the aim for us to commemorate the day, the UN Day, is to raise awareness of the people in the whole world. What are the aims and what are the achievements of the United Nations? And also getting the support, that was the aim, getting the support from each of us, each citizen of the planet, to support the UN activity. And that's why I'm really happy that we have this initiative here to commemorate today this event with clear educational nature. So we've talked to Defina and Osnat that all of us, we do a lot of useful, very practical things with practical results in Kiev, in New York, in many, many Ukrainian cities and towns and villages. But unfortunately, quite often, the members of the UN team, they feel shy. They don't want to openly tell about these big deeds that they do, you know, all around Ukraine. And today's event, I do hope, will allow the audience to understand better what is the use, what can we take for us, what is the use for each citizen of the country from UN activity. So is it really so useful to be involved in UN activities and to cooperate with it? I'm happy that this awareness raising activity that has always been the focus of our cooperation with UN continues and develops. I'm happy. And today for Ukraine, United Nations organization means access to political and humanitarian tools or toolkit, which is actively used in the process of combating the Russian aggression and in the response to its consequences. At UN General Assembly, we have this annual resolution, adopted 2 resolutions, which actually state that the temporary occupation of Crimean Peninsula is not recognized by international community. So we always have the issue of the temporary occupation in the agenda, despite the attempts of the aggressor to eliminate it. The occupation of Crimea and Donbass led to a serious humanitarian crisis. Almost 1.5 million of Ukrainian citizens has become IDPs. More than 3,800,000 of Donbass residents are living right now on both sides of the separation line, and they require humanitarian support. So we have the infrastructure still destroyed in the warfare zone. Therefore, we value and appreciate so much all the efforts of UN related to humanitarian response and restoring activities. When we speak about the support provided of UN to Ukraine starting from 2014, so the total volume 1,300,000,000 by the UN. Out of this volume, we got approximately more than 50% we had presented by the UN system, 700,000 million. Last year, UN mobilized $230 million for various projects. In Ukraine, we have not only the IDPs. Ukraine also takes IDPs, accepts IDPs from Afghanistan. They also require support in cooperation, and this cooperation is supported by the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner on Refugees. In Ukraine, we do feel the support from the UN. We do feel it, but Ukrainians live all around the world, not only in Ukraine. And the situation, for example, the Ukrainian community in the Russian Federation is of huge concern for us. Ukrainians in Russia, they do suffer from various discriminatory and repressive acts from the government, the Russian government, and their rights violations requires extra attention, and of course there must be intervention from the UN, and I do want UN to intervene. And I would like to note the achievements of UN team in Ukraine. They do their job at a proper level, not only in Kyiv, but all around the country. And they work with various actors and stakeholders, government, independent experts, NGOs, activists, local activists, and the media, of course. So, therefore, I'd like to express my huge gratitude to Ms. Lubrani, the resident coordinator at UN, also Ms. Dafina Gercheva presenting the UNDP. We have very tight cooperation with them. We continue this cooperation while I'm staying in New York, but not to them only, to many people. And it's really nice for me to remember those individual meetings with the UNFPA, with the head of UNFPA in Ukraine, Mr. Jaime Nadal, Erika Kvapilova presenting UN Women, and many others. And it's for our joint benefit to develop the cooperation and to enhance our practical efforts on improving the UN activity. I'd like to greet you all here, and congratulations with the UN Day. Dear friends, dear ladies and gentlemen, have a nice day. Serhiy Kyslitsa, standing representative of Ukraine at UN. Thank you, Serhiy. Yes, this event has become a little bit like international already, and right now we'll add some more because we have with us online a person from MFA who knows better about the foreign and international activities, Valentin Skoratovsky, acting director of the Department of International Organizations of MFA of Ukraine. Valentin, are you with us? Yes, thank you. Dear Ms. Lubrani, dear ladies and gentlemen, I'd like right now to present this speech on behalf of the MFA, and congratulations on the 76th anniversary of the UN existence. We are so proud that we have the partnership with UN on achieving the SDGs. The organization has traditionally played and still plays a very important role in the support of economic reforms in Ukraine, so democratic government strengthening and the rule of law. In Ukraine, we do appreciate highly the advisory and technical support provided by the UN in on various issues on migration management, refugees protection, human rights, environmental protection, fighting the climate change consequences, and of course, energy efficiency. Especially, I'd like to note the dynamic nature of our cooperation on gender equality. Thanks to the UN support, within quite a short period of time, we managed to create the regulatory and institutional framework, which allowed us to actually get this progress in gender-related issues. So what was the true challenge for us? The COVID-19 pandemic and for the whole world. And we do appreciate our gratitude to UN because they were the first to help us. They started working shoulder to shoulder with us, each agency, and we actually managed to tackle it and to save thousands of lives. I do hope that we'll continue cooperation in the context of response to social economic consequences of the pandemic and to accelerate the vaccination rate. One of the most successful examples of cooperation is tackling the humanitarian consequences of the Russian aggression. An important role is played by UN in coordination of humanitarian support provision at Donbass and support provided to the most vulnerable categories of population. Due to the Russian aggression, which is still manifested in the eastern Ukraine, we do hope that the cooperation will be continued. 76 years ago, the UN was established, and somehow this became a manifestation of the world's of the global hope to build a better future on the basis of equality, dignity, and fairness. It seemed to be that we somehow tried and attempted to forget those tragedies that we had in our past. But Russian aggression and occupation of Crimea unfortunately proves that still this lesson has to be learned. So we do, as a country, absolutely stand for the last year Secretary General announcement for the ceasefire. We are doing everything to reach that goal. We are doing everything to stop the hostilities, but Russian Federation does not actually meet its obligations and commitments. We still have a lot of shelling at the separation line. So the list of illegal activities, list of violations by Russian Federation is extending every month. So another challenge was the all-Russian census that also we had in the occupied Crimea as well. So what we can see is definitely a violation of international law, and they're doing everything to destabilize the situation. But of course, all the activities that they do perform, everything contradicts the international law and international regulations. So it's very important still for the international community not to stand aside, but of course to send these strong messages to Russian Federation in order to stop the hostilities. So we need to be very determined and we need to have this adequate response from the international community. This is a prerequisite for us to stop losing our people. Participation of 46 countries and international organizations in the first Crimean platform showed how committed the international community is. UN itself was not present at the summit, despite this important role that organization does play when we speak about the Crimean deoccupation. And UN already adopted a resolution on demilitarization of Crimea and restoring the territorial integrity of the country. So it makes us think, can the organization actually in such circumstances to respond properly to any challenges related to international security and peace? So won't it have the destiny of the League of Nations? But I want to believe that these values and principles, which are fundamental for the UN, will definitely win, and we will see the support we hope to get the constructive and adequate approach to combat and stop the Russian aggression. The format of the Crimean platform is always open for the UN, and thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Valentin. So, we've announced that today we'll have a TEDx format because we thought like, well, you should get the most precious thing, like people. What is most precious? People. Together with the UN, these people, via various programs, projects, they become individually successful and they help us to achieve our SDGs. The first one will be Pavlo Hud. He cooperates with the UNICEF actively. Pavlo, he's a priest, and previously he considered that, okay, if a person comes to me, I always have to give it specific advice, show a proper direction to move, but once he thought like, okay, maybe specific advice is sometimes not that necessary, and that the secret of good communication is it's not about words. So if not words, then what? So Pavlo Hud, please welcome. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear Osnat, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I'd like to share today with you my opinion, listening as a communication. So when 20 years ago I became a priest, it seemed to me that I was absolutely in my place, and I was at my place when I know all the answers to all the questions. It's like a strategy, you know, strategy of the universal knowledge. Answering everything you were asked. Okay, and when someone came, I quite often talked to people, they were asking me, I knew the answer, I felt like, whoa, I'm at my place, you know. But when someone came especially to confess, when you have this individual conversation, people ask you and you just I said myself, oh, you're a loser right now. So when you don't know an answer, you actually show yourself as a weak person. I thought so. But when you do show your weakness, how can you be a leader of the community, a religious leader? And later this strategy, you know, giving answers to all questions started cracking, I'd say, started well, I had more and more requests from people, but my capacity to give answers was minimizing. The most painful moment, which actually started destroying my strategy, was the death of my father. The doctor said that he was about to die in 6 months, but we were not ready that he died in almost 2 days, unfortunately. The following year after his death, I had so many questions like why. I was looking for answers why it happened. And there was no answer for these questions, for none of them. Moreover, I drew my attention in my conversations with other people that not always they came to me to get an answer, not always. Quite often, the reason why people actually came to me is not just getting an answer, but looking for someone who would listen and hear them eventually. So the research that was carried out in Chicago among top managers showed that 80% of success, of any business success, depends on our ability to listen. The way how we listen, if we can listen, if you can hear people, it actually affected the amount of problems which could be avoided, because many problems and many misunderstandings emerged because we did not hear it properly, did not listen properly. When we heard, we misinterpreted it still. When I worked ahead of the Department of Recruiting in 2017, I had a lot of misunderstandings with the future students, with my colleagues, with the parents of these students. I remember one thing when I had a lady or a case when one very famous person in Lviv wrote in Facebook a post about everything. But what I got out of that post was a remark to the Ukrainian Catholic University that there was a girl who wanted to be enrolled in to a university, and she like had a privilege because her father died in eastern Ukraine, but they did not enroll her with a privileged status. So I asked this lady who wrote a post. We were drinking coffee and she was talking, I was listening. The tone of the conversation was not very comfortable, and my listening was very it came up with tension. I had a lot of tension inside. And then I understood that when we are in the environment of this tense conversation, it doesn't matter how we feel. The only thing that matters, what can be the success of our solution or decision, thanks to listening. This is something they call empathy. Empathy, which allows us to put ourselves in someone's shoes, like that. So our meeting, we came to nothing after coffee, and in the very end, the lady said, never, never. My two daughters, they will never become the students of your university, of the Catholic University. I was so tense. I was really annoyed with that. And of course, then we helped that girl who wanted to be enrolled, and I informed the lady. In a couple of months, she calls me and asks, can you help my daughter? She is a first-year student of other university, but she wants to get into Ukrainian Catholic University. In 2 years, her second daughter was enrolled to the same university. So this situation showed me how important it is to listen and to be empathetic at the same time. This is what we call an emotional intelligence, and it allows us to step into someone's shoes, to see through someone's eyes. But there is one but, as always. It's important, what's important with the listening, to still the common sense, what we call the critical thinking. You need to maintain it. If you don't use common sense while listening, you will get burned. And financially as well, I had a situation. I got burned. I got rid of 300 hryvnias. I remember it still. 5 minutes before the service, a man came to my church and said, like, Father, give me 300 hryvnias just to bring the body of my dad's son from Kyiv to Stry. Stry is the place where I live. Okay, internally, I had like feeling, okay, 300 hryvnias, what he will do with it? I say, okay, Pablo, I say to myself, person has a tragedy, you start criticizing, don't be a harsh person, give 300 hryvnias. And he says, Father, tomorrow I'll come and I will negotiate the date of the funeral. Now it's almost 10 years gone since that conversation. He's still negotiating. Then I do hope that his family is okay and his relatives are okay. But this situation with the lack of critical thinking and presence of empathy show that, yes, good listening is a balance of empathy and critical thinking. So please don't try to deflect to either side. In 2016, our university and UNICEF had the first program implemented for religious leaders in Ukraine for the lecturers of centers for the newlyweds, 120 people. Thanks to UNICEF, it was their initiative. I even had some doubts if this could be done. So the diphtheria vaccination, that was the core of the program. And we also had priests as students. Priests are hard students. They know everything. They are teaching people, and now they are students. They become students. Well, it's hard for them. Saying that the beginning of training was tense, it means saying nothing, especially in things like vaccination. 70% of training, it was almost listening, when trainers were listening to participants to understand their pains, their stereotypes and biases and vaccination, and all that mixture that you get in people's heads because misinformation, because myths and all that crap, you know. And what I remember very well from that time, the end of the training, one young priest, he raises his hand and says, I am not vaccinated against diphtheria. My wife is not as well. My wife is pregnant. What should we do? Where should we go for us to vaccinate? Another fresh argument in favor of listening is the argument of my family. We all know the saying that you can't be a priest in your own church, so you can't be a leader in your family, let's say. I've been practicing listening for 3 months by yesterday, and my mom got her vaccination yesterday. I spent 3 months to convince her. Right now, all the family is vaccinated against COVID-19, and we can finally start thinking and how to build our lives for better. I managed to convince her. So the research carried out by universities of Michigan and Florida, these demonstrate that people usually remember not more than 25% of what they heard or listened to. So within the next following 8 hours, we forget from 30 to 50% of information. And you don't even remember what I started with, and it's okay. If we remember 25 minutes of the sad things, that would be good. So a couple of my key messages, just to finish my speech. Listening is also communication. Listening gives us strong negotiating position, especially in long-term perspective. It strengthens us. Listening is about keeping common sense and critical thinking as a component. The quality of our listening is clearly correlated with empathy, our ability to think like other people do and see like other people see. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Pavlo Hud. Okay, and right now, I'd like you to remember yourselves when you were 15. Okay, I'll give you 3 seconds just to remember yourselves, try to recollect that. You are 15. I was not a very good person, I convinced. And I had some shitty banners on my walls, but we have a person here who in 15 years, being 15 years old, started protecting human rights. He became a human rights activist. He started from volunteering, and then he had his way up to the youth leader, an expert of strategic planning. And right now he's not 15, but within these years, he managed to he even had 6 and he managed to work with 6 programs of UN agencies and funds, so International Organization for Migration, UNDP, UNFPA, UNICEF, and UN Volunteers. 6, if we do count. I'm not sure if these are 6. Okay, UN supported his initiatives and projects, and he managed to do a lot. So today he'll tell us why is it really great to become an activist, and why it's not just good for the society, but also for youth empowering. So Maxim Stadilko is with us today. Good. So, what associations do you have when you hear the word, the combination of words, human trafficking or slavery? Someone will remember Ridley Scott's Gladiator, where men were picked at the market just like women, you know, men to fight, women to become servants. Someone will remember the US history, the slavery of the dark-skinned population. For someone, the first association will be the words of one of the Ukrainian writers, because we had that slavery as well, Panshchina, when many people were working for rich. And you know, this ancient transportation means the horse. It was transformed into a car. Slavery, it had thousands of years of evolution. It transformed into what? 16-year-old Danya was working in Hungary at the construction site. He didn't earn anything. He spent 2 weeks in the police precinct before he was, and after this he was taken by his mom from the precinct. 29-year-old Olena planned to work as a waitress in Bulgaria, but she was forced to become a prostitute. 41-year-old Andriy with his brother, they were working really hard at the shoe factory in Romania, and they got only these they got a lot of physical aggression from their owners, from the owners of the factory. We migrate due to various reasons. Tourism, we look for better life, and of course the labor migration. Education, for example, despite all these opportunities, there's always a risk for us to become the victims of human trafficking. Labor, sexual exploitation, selling of organs, body parts, child labor, transportation, selling, exploitation. So this is something that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and many other people around the world faced. According to IOM, 260,000 Ukrainians since 1991 actually became victims. It's just the population of Sumy or Zhytomyr city. And we can add Zmerenka to Ternopil and still we will not have 260,000. All these people that I mentioned, they somehow managed to return to Ukraine. They had psychological support, medical care, reintegration support, and they got some support to purchase equipment for their future work, and IOM helped them, and also a network of small NGOs which do work all around the country. When I was a 15-year-old teen, I came to one of the NGOs, and I do have some experience with it. Remember who you were at 15. So would you be ignited or excited with such topic as human trafficking? I would say instantly. Firstly, I wasn't excited at all because as a teenager, what I wanted to do, hang out with my friends, looking for something new, traveling Ukraine, all around Ukraine, talking to my peers and do something that teens really love mostly. But for me, well, I was so surprised that civic activism, it gave me everything: lectures, training, seminars, festivals, communication with young people, with active young people. It really drove me, it was a driver. And maybe now it will sound a little bit naive, but in 2006, at that time, it was for me like outer space. It works both ways. When you travel, when you meet people, you go deeper into the topic, into the issue itself. I started understanding more what human trafficking is. I started feeling the problem, the seriousness, and finally understood what civic society is all about. It was a revelation for me to understand that 8-hour working day, voting right for everyone, human rights, and Ukrainian independence even, and our last two revolutions, environmental projects, youth initiatives, tackling the illegal construction, anti-corruption, and the abolition of slavery. That was the result of unification. People were standing for some common goals, with even paying with their own lives sometimes. I was in love with civic society and activism. I decided to stay there for quite a long time. Imagine a coach, a sofa, a big one, big enough to be put in an ordinary office. When the whole team of NGO will sit on the sofa, by that time, as these can sit on one sofa, by that time the NGO can be called a sofa organization. My organization, my first one, started as a sofa NGO. We had a typical story for such local NGOs. We have a certain team of people united by an idea or goal. Yes, they start doing something simultaneously, doing something else, their jobs. One grant, second grant, and they start doing more. They involve more people. They involve external stakeholders, and then third grant, and everything seems successful. But then you face a problem, a reality. What is the reality? One grant is over. A part of people has a burnout. You have problems with equipment. You have conflicts inside the organization. You don't even have this understanding who should change the paper in the toilet. But we started delegating it to each other and throwing all these tasks and duties to each other. There was a crisis, you know. Right now, from my experience, I can see that the vast majority of NGOs of these future hypothetical stars of civic society, they actually fade. And we did not fade. Once there was a carpenter and he passed by a man who was trying to cut the tree with a blunt saw. Okay, the guy says, oh, I have no time, I need to cut the tree. And when the carpenter said, take a better saw. We have something that actually drives us, that ignites us, and we sometimes forget as NGOs to stop, to evaluate ourselves, to think if everything's okay in the NGO. We were afraid. And where we got some help from, the tool designed by the UNDP, it helped us. A small leaflet in each NGO, I guess, can download it from internet, or even the printed ones may exist. Some tools like that, USAID has that, Impact, you can use it and it's not hard. So we had analysis, we analyzed ourselves, we understood that, yes, the structure is not that democratic, the governance, the managers, they don't know what to do, no financial sustainability is there. But we managed to complete projects. With accounting, it was fine. We had good relations with partners. We were loved and cared, and we worked and we were doing something good. But we were not happy. We, as an organization, were not happy. Since then, we systematically tried to sharpen the saw. We analyze ourselves. We have special hours when we do nothing, but we just analyze and think, okay, how can we improve ourselves, strengthen ourselves? Is everything fine? Are we okay? Within 15 years, we managed to help thousands of clients, implement more than 100 of projects, various projects, open a shelter which helps women who suffered from violence. We even have a social enterprise today launched, and many good things we do. This is a great job, and we of course have some confidence concerning our future, because we've had a lot of work within these 15 years with 6 UN agencies. This is a big achievement for us. And so we help other NGOs with our experience, smaller ones, providing them with expertise. So this is something that I really want to do in future. About me, what I understood within this half of my life when I was a member of the PLUST, and also as a state official, as an activist, as one of the founders of the most innovative youth centers, 3 very simple rules, what I got from it. First rule, not even a rule, but conclusion. Conclusion 1, my decisions related to participation in civic activism, these were the most adequate decisions in my life. It gave me a lot. I really want you all to find an NGO, a union, an association, a heartwarming one. It will be a fantastic thing. Second, doesn't matter what I do, never forget about sharpening your saw. If I'm not capable of doing something demotivated, my team and me will never do something good. Even if we can, this will be sustainable contribution or impact. The last thing, when I visited 28 countries, I'm really convinced right now that traveling is a miracle. Traveling itself is a miracle. And it doesn't matter how you travel, as a tourist or looking for a better life, or as a labor migrant, as a student, it's important always to remember the safety rules, basic safety rules, which will give you extra chances that you will, that this travel will not destroy your life, but only enrich your life. Because life, this is about migration itself, migration from childhood to the future. Thank you. Thank you so much. Maxim Studilko, thank you. And right now, we will have Alexander Ostapa. Alexander Ostapa. One day, his life changed radically, but due to a very important reason, he had a daughter. His daughter was born, and little Solomia, she changed his life completely. And he understood that being a dad is a cool thing, and he wants to tell it to everyone. He became a communication manager of the UNFPA in Ukraine. So what actually is responsible parenting and how it's related to gender equality? What is Tato Hub? He'll tell us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So good afternoon. Okay, my time is ready there. So it was on December 15, 2019. It was the day when I was lying on the floor in the maternity ward next to the bed where my wife was sleeping, next to the small bed where my daughter was sleeping, who was born a couple of hours before that. By the way, lying on the floor. It sounds great, yeah? Because I was so lucky in our maternity ward, there was an opportunity to be with your wife, but there was no bed for the dad. Well, if we talk about many state clinics, when you only can see a child through the window, this is a big victory. So this is about discrimination of dads, but we'll talk about it later. I'm lying on the floor, and I have my first post on Facebook that it's 3 of us already, and at that moment everything started. I became a dad. I became a blogger instantly when I became a dad. So actually, it happened so that the first 6 months of my wife's pregnancy, I missed it because of hard work. I was working really hard. The last 3, fortunately, I was with her all the time. And this wish to be together next to her while she was giving birth and being next to her, this is not the same, because you need wish, you need a strong wish, and for all these puzzle parts to be completed, it's related to stereotypes that we'll talk about. I was ready to be a dad, and I was so happy to have a daughter, to be a daughter's dad, but at the same time I was so afraid. What kind of dad would I be? Will my child grow as a happy person thanks to me? Will she love me, actually? And for me not to stay aside from my wife, who decided to learn about this was her first experience, and I'm the elder brother. When I was 15, my parents gave me 2 twins. I had this face-to-face experience when my twin brothers were born, before the release of the first iPhone. We have the 13th one, just for you to understand. So I decided to refresh my knowledge about childcare. I came to Facebook. I started knocking at various groups, and what I got, sorry, will not let you there because you're a dad, not a mom. Okay, I stopped a little bit at that moment, because in the world where we all fight stereotypes, we find them where we couldn't even imagine. Okay, men can't give birth to their children. Okay, men can't be pregnant, but they want also to be involved in caretaking. So such examples as the floor, lying on the floor on Facebook, we have a lot of these things, you know, on Facebook, and I don't support it, of course. In Ukraine, of course, the lady is, you know, doing everything for the household, and father has to make money. But maybe mom wants to have a successful career. She may have that wish, or dad maybe would love to stay at home with his child. These are stereotypes that need to tackle all the time. And because of that blog I started on December 15th, I try to bring this to people. At the beginning of my paternal leave, let's say on Tuesday at 10 a.m. in the park, mothers were looking at me like, who's that? Well, like, was he stealing his child from somewhere? Now I know these moms, 2 years passed, and when the new dad comes, there is no surprise. But then, well, we have a lot of dads with prams. We even have a local community of dads working with their children. Why I call this a half paternal leave? Because when my child was born, we negotiated with my wife that we decided that I refused to do any job for 1 month. I just stayed home, okay? And then I had to change my schedule a little bit, and then the lockdown, and then remote work, and for almost 2 years we've been together, and that's great. I mean the child. I just want to show you, by the way, just to tell you that all this is changing, really changing, transforming. And at some moment of my life, I became a communication manager of Tata Hub Kyiv and UNFPA communication consultant. It all helped me to find a great community, because Tata Hub, this is a project that aims to show that it's cool to be a dad and it's useful to be a dad. It's not just about Kyiv Tata Hub. We have a dozen of them in other towns. In Armenia, we have it, in Moldova, in Belarus, in Azerbaijan, and Georgia. So it's spreading. This initiative, it's great because the key initiative of Tata Hubs is not just being for some time with your child, an hour, like an hour a day. This hour must be a quality hour. It's about taking care, proper care. It's about helping your family. And don't forget that partners, we have these partners relations in a trend, and Tata Hub says about it as well. I would say this: Ukraine is a progressive country in many areas, but in many areas it's not quite progressive, unfortunately. And the issues of both parents' responsibility, your own experience, international experience, Tata Hub, projects like Tata Hub, they change the situation. And it actually is great. I tried to change, to continue changing the whole agenda thanks to my blog. And actually, I had two principles I used. I wanted to show you, but I forgot. Two key aspects I wanted to rely on. So, using my own experience, you can show that you can. Using your experience, you can show the actual situation without stereotypes. And when you want to show how cool your child is. I had no opportunity to show everyone how cool my child is, so I decided to do it. Being a dad, growing together with your child is interactive. I learned a lot. Now I know many new words, many new devices. Who created this thing, this piece of cloth with a special pocket collecting extra food? I want to give a Nobel Prize to those people. Okay, so why aren't all stuff made out of the material that they actually use for feeding chairs? Many devices, especially for newborns. Guys, this is great. Aspirator, great thing. Nibbler, didn't work for us. Just a couple of words that I know about, and not maybe even many women know what that is. So how it all helps with time management and multitasking. Any MBA course, forget about it. It's just a waste of money. So people often ask me why it's cool. Why it is cool to tell about how it is to be a dad. Why it's cool to be an active dad. Well, actually, a lot of reasons there is. And why are you doing this? People ask. This is a challenge for everyone. Let someone else tell it. It's not like something we have in our country. Unfortunately, in my life, I did not get enough of dad's love. My parents divorced quite early. I stayed with my mom. Then when I was a teenager, my dad died, unfortunately. And I really want, with my activity, with my involvement in Tata Hub, with my blog, to show other dads that let's all love our children. They really need it. And by the way, according to the data of UNFPA, in 85% of the families, only moms take care of the children, only mothers. So imagine 85%. This is a huge percent. And when men are asked, why can't you give more time and spend more time with your children? They say, We have to provide for the family. But I think that mom, she has 2 jobs. She has her main job, and then she comes home and she works as a mom. So it even can be much harder than just going to office. And still dads are afraid to change diapers. Well, it's a stereotype that we need to tackle, to destroy, and we do it. So the great thing is that 20% of men would really like to take a paternal leave for some period to take care of the child. 1/5, and this percent is growing, I'm sure. Okay, what I would like to confess, more than 10 years of communication expertise I have. I was on TV, in football, in international organizations, in state authorities, in business. The best profession is the profession of dad. This is the coolest thing I have, the coolest experience. Sometimes I'm asking myself, like, will I be a good dad in 10 years? Will my child be a good person thanks to my efforts? Will she love me? I know that when I'm older, I will not regret that I spent this time with my kid. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was Alexander Ostap, a communication specialist and dad. Please, those who know about this postponed effect. Postponed effect, what is that? And we will bring the formula of success. And that may sound like successful success or some doubtful thing. No. Success formula will be provided by the PhD in maths. So Olena Vanieva will give us the formula of success, and she'll tell us how she promotes STEM for girls together with UN Women. Olena Vanieva. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In some sense, my speech will about love and maths. So I'll start it with a question to you. Did you love maths when you were at school? Do we have such people actually existing? I'm not one of them, definitely. So yeah, we have so many people here still because I truly love maths. Yeah, and I want to tell you first that recently, if you're a woman, just imagine it, and if it happens so that you love maths, it was not so complicated for you to study maths. Sometimes it was dangerous. Okay, the first mathematician, female mathematician, is the first actually female mathematician. She lived almost 2,000 years ago, and she actually was a teacher of philosophy and maths in a Greek school. She was an inventor, and she actually designed a device to actually determine the location of stars. Smart women are hated today. Imagine that time. She had a tragic death. She was accused of a dark magic, and she was torn into pieces by fanatics. A horrible death. You know, you may say, okay, 2,000 years ago, that was long ago. Okay, let's move a little bit closer to us. 250 years ago, a female mathematician, Sophie Germain, she actually had to sign her papers and letters to colleagues with male name. She said, Monsieur Leblanc, yours respectfully. She knew nobody is gonna take her seriously if she actually put her real name. And only later, when she managed to put her actual signature, everybody knew that she was really a successful and prominent mathematician. She never got a salary for her work. She was never paid. Okay, 150 years ago, Sofia Kovalevska, for her just to graduate from the university, to get a higher degree. Everyone can do it today, almost everyone. She had even to get this fake marriage. I hope that nobody has to become a wife to graduate from university and in the world. And I want to remember one inspiring woman, one of the most prominent mathematicians of the 20th century, Emily Netter. She was born 100 years before me, and it's hard to believe that for her to study at university, she had to go to each teacher individually to come up to everyone and get a written approval that they have nothing against a woman actually studying. When she invented later, she actually the abstract algebra, she actually worked with many various theoretical aspects the Einstein worked with, and Einstein actually compared her with Marie Curie thanks to her contribution to science. So for 7 years she had no salary, she was not paid, and when finally when she tried to get an official job, there was a whole column of other professors, male professor, who said, how can we work with a woman? How can we actually allow this to happen for a female professor to teach men? But the university is not a men's sauna, her colleague said. And one of her colleagues, Herman Bale, said that traditions, superstitions, and some opinions actually were overthrown by her achievements. And it wasn't even contested by anyone. It works for all these ladies I mentioned. Today it's 2021. And I'm standing in front of you, and I have my PhD in math and physics, and I'm representing the Academy of Sciences, and you can tell me, finally, the spell is broken, we have gender equality. And yes, I actually graduated from Dniprovsk University. I got my scholarship. I actually then got a job, and I had my scientific career evolved. I had actually this small salary just like men do have. So basically we have the gender equality in some sense. But actually, if among women mathematicians, if only 30% of women we have among mathematicians, we still have this glass ceiling anyway. When we take the top positions, 5-7% or so, doctors of sciences, again, 5 or 7% are women. And because of this, such organizations as UN Women, UNICEF, they fight not for Ukraine only, but for the whole world, for women and girls in the whole world to get equal access to education, for equal opportunities to do what they love. Because I love maths. I can't imagine my life. I can't imagine if someone would say, would actually keep me away from maths. I remember myself coming to science. I was very curious. In university, I had a task for my thesis and no actually solutions how to work with that task. Nothing. And I had this euphoria, the feeling of euphoria when I solved it, and I felt like, whoa, I want to do this all the time. I want to have these challenges all the time and get this satisfaction from it. But quite often I'm asked, okay, maths, what haven't you done there? Okay, many people think that maths, everything is discovered, everything is already known. Will a rocket fly after your calculations are done? How shall we make money in a state thanks to your maths? People ask me, maths mostly, true, big, pure maths, as they call it, fundamental maths, it was not created by request because of money, but because people were interested, because people wanted to discover something. You all have smartphones in your hands, in your pockets. Do you know that all these things with the codes containing 1 and 0, when people, like 100 years ago, people had no idea of the smartphones, when those mathematicians would be asked, why are you doing that? Binary codes. They would never say that, okay, we're doing this for smartphones. They were just curious. We all are so nervous about our safety of our bank accounts. We all are, of course, and deposits. Do you know that these numbers used in the cryptographic protocols, this was a game for ancient Greeks. They were actually trying to combine these numbers all the time. They had no bank accounts. So yeah, they were playing with figures and numbers. In the history of maths, that was so often. Computer industry, computer games that we have today, companies making millions on that, they use these quaternions, these huge numbers, even created like hundreds of years ago. So what actually I do? Differential equations. And when Sophus Lee actually created these in the 19th century, nobody was interested. In 60, 70 years, physicists understood that this is top, this is a super discovery, and today they use it almost in all physics chapters, these groups. So basically, the principle of the prolonged action that we have in maths, we can use it in life, of the postponed action. So because we speak about the success stories today. For 17 years, I've been there in the Academy of Sciences, and I had so many awards, L'Oreal, UNESCO, International Award of Rising Stars, and a Woman of the Year in Science. But I want to tell you, I never aspired, no awards, no positions, never thought of these awards. This is just the side effect of my curiosity. So I was actually I had two theses. I'm a mom of two children, and now I still continue working with mathematical problems and various stuff. And then I was, thrown with these awards and certificates. Yes, I do think that this is a postponed action. This is a side effect of my activity. So that's why I'm into mentorship. In Maths Institute, we actually created events, launched events together, women from all Ukraine. We have mathematicians, female mathematicians in the country. It's interesting for them. We have these math days for young people, for boys and girls, both of them, to show actually that math is a cool thing, really great thing. And this is what the postponed effect is. And I do hope that out of these, boys and girls will have prominent mathematicians in dozens of years, and they will actually discover something we will use, the humanity will use. In 200 years, 300 years, doesn't matter, like it usually happens in the history. So just to sum up, why did I tell that my speech is titled Love and Maths? I think that a human being, a person who loves one's job, doesn't matter what one's doing, doesn't matter who one is making a world better without exaggeration. So actually, I want you all to find that area which will satisfy you and give something beneficial to people. Thank you. Well, once the epidemiologist's profession was quite a rare one, but we know that within the last year and a half, everything changed, and every second person in the internet is epidemiologist. Natalia Hopko is a real epidemiologist. She picked this area when she was a student of the medical university because at that moment we had the diphtheria epidemic in Ukraine and we were losing people every day. Unfortunately, we all know that today we have hundreds of people lost. We have the WHO. And with the support of WHO, Natalia, together with other doctors, she's trying to tackle and fight the pandemic. We'll listen to her, what helps her, what is an obstruction for her to destroy COVID and get rid of it completely. Natalia Hopko, and also the honored doctor of Ukraine. So hello friends. It's really an honor for me to stay with you today. I'd like to express my gratitude to WHO and UN for the support, for this multilateral support that my team always gets, especially within the recent years. Truly, epidemiologists, there are not so many of us, you know, the key thing that joins us all: enthusiasm, love to people, and a wish to save the world. That might sound high, but still. Today, the key task for the epidemiologist, I do think, is to analyze the risks timely and be aware of what to do to minimize the risk, or for these risks to stay potential but not actual, like vaccination, distancing, masks, you know that. I've always been lucky with great teachers, with good managers and bosses, partners in the work I've been doing with my team, and I always had a good team of allies. So, you know, with all these outbursts, when we managed to avoid the risks that we had for infectious diseases, the biggest challenge for our team was the period when, for the first time, we faced a pandemic of the flu. At that moment, it was really hard. Young people were dying. We had the vaccine, the swine flu. At that time, we didn't have that media, the social media, you know, which distributed fake news. People were dying. Within the first months of the swine flu outburst in Chernivtsi region, we had 27 young people dying, you know, mostly young people. These were young people. I remember one of my friends' daughter-in-law died, a young girl. And we were like, it was horrible to listen about these deaths. On one day in March in 2021, only in Chernivtsi region, just to compare, 26 people died. Coronavirus pandemic changed my life and life of my colleagues completely. It seems like now we have the life before and after. And in between, we have the life during the pandemic. It's broken into these small pieces, and quite often I think of that. You know, I can see two parallel worlds. I do remember the beginning of 2020. The situation in the world is changing rapidly. We have new countries covered by the COVID-19. It's distributing and tragic events. At that time, we tried to prevent the infection to appear in Ukraine. We actually cooperated with our emergency service colleagues at the border. We understood at that time that hundreds of people coming back to Ukraine, Ukrainians, the majority of them, they were not the patients of the family doctors. So it was a threat. So basically, we understood that we can't actually keep the virus away from the border, from the country. But these people, when they entered Ukraine, they had no information on the self-isolation and so on. With the colleagues, we decided to organize and launch this hotline for people, which would give an opportunity to get this necessary information for our people on family doctors, contacts, the tests, the PCR tests, self-isolation. And I think at that moment we helped, and we still help, because this hotline is active, it's still working, and we have many calls coming every day. All cases were traced. We were tracing, contacting people. I remember the end of February, I do remember all those people, almost all of them. In April, I can't give you anything. It just vanished from my memory, and it was like, now it's a blank space for me. 20 tests per day. This is the maximum for the lab, and we understand that tomorrow we'll have 100. We did everything to manage that, because I remember the primary care doctors were afraid to listen about this, that they have individually consult and provide PCR tests for all. We understood if we don't do it, we will not actually diagnose COVID. They will disseminate infection, and those people who would hesitate with the treatment, and we had the support from the WHO. Today, our lab has up to 3,000 tests per day, and nobody's waiting for the result. Up to 24 hours. This is it. Primary care doctors, they have huge burden today. It's huge load. Remember the two parallel worlds. One is where we have those who don't believe in coronavirus. We have fewer of them. Another reality where people fall from their feet, where they are overexhausted, emergency services, virologists, epidemiologists, COVID units, various vials with tests. And I just remember a story, a case when a wife of our first patient registered in Chernivtsi region. The whole country was looking at us. There were so many questions, no answers, but we managed to tackle the challenges. And I remember that protest next to that man's neighbors to get this lady out of the house because she was contagious. And another case I remember, when we get information about people who know about their status, that they have COVID, they're COVID positive, and they still continue communicating with other people. So there was no common sense in that at all. In the beginning, we had no vaccine. Nobody even talked of that. Then we were anxiously expecting it. Someone was criticizing, saying it takes too long. Now we have a lot of vaccine in Ukraine. And still, we have so many people who disagree to vaccinate with even the best arguments. Someone is hesitating, postponing. Even my friends and relatives who were postponing the vaccination, they got infected with COVID before that. I remember we had a man who called us, and he decided to propose his girl, to ask her to become his wife in a marriage, and he was thinking like, whether should I vaccinate? Then he gave another call saying that his girlfriend vaccinated, he vaccinated, and only after that she said yes to that proposal. And thank God we do have these stories. Quite often it's really hard to notice our work. All these investigations, you may notice it when we already have 600 or 700 cases per day, when we have the small lag. Well, there are not many of us. The army is not that big. I remember a lady calling to a radio. She mentioned that she and her colleague are contagious because they communicated with a sick person, and she asked us for help. And quite often we depend on people's sincerity. We want people to be open and sincere about what's happening. For example, there is a problem when people don't, due to various reasons, they don't inform us about their contacts. And this actually stops us from preventing this pandemic, because we all must contribute to it. It won't work otherwise. We have a dream that come true thanks to WHO software for contacting person tracing, with computers, with equipment, with multi-level training of the personnel. When we can do this work with fewer efforts, with more opportunities for analysis, we have notifications, automatic notifications, when to give a call to contacting person, to ask about self-isolation mode, and then we'll use this equipment for any kind of other infectious disease to investigate outbursts. This is a dream that come true with the help of the WHO. 1.5 years, we've already been living within the pandemic in a new reality. We sometimes are caught in that opinion that, well, we sometimes want to just give up. Someone doesn't understand, someone doesn't believe, but it happens especially when you start reading some posts or comments on Facebook, but every time I do understand that me and my colleagues, we will be strong enough to continue working and saving those who want to be saved and those who don't want to be. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Дякую.
Thank you. Thank you.
Нашого наступного спікера звуть Алі
Our
Турабі.
next speaker is Ali Turabi, and his life looks like a movie. Not always this movie has been a nice one, a comedy. Due to the situation in his country, his family had to move out for a couple of times, and then they had to be separated for 7 years. But eventually they all joined in Ukraine, and with the grand support of the UNHCR, we have Ali here in Kiev, and he launched a youth initiative that actually helps refugees. And right now we'll find out how he helps us to save others. Ali Tarabi, please. You know, it's already October. Many children say, we don't want to go to school. I was born in a country where many children don't have an opportunity to go to school, especially girls. So Talibs are there for the second time. They took the power. And when me and my relatives, we read the news, what's happening, or watch TV, with our hearts, we feel this pain, and we want to help those who are in that situation right now, because we had this experience. We were separated for quite a long time once. We know the pain. 1998, when I was born. Talibs have been there for 2 years, grasping the power in Afghanistan, and they control almost 90% of the country. And they presented the radical Sharia and standards and rules, and they control everything. So they even prohibited chess, studying at school, music, television. And right after I was born, my parents decided to leave the country, to flee, to protect their children. And I was an infant. I was a small child. I was with my mom, and we left the country. And for the first time, I faced the war, the hostility, without even knowing that. I suffered from it then. So 11 years passed, and I lived in another country for 11 years. I'm 11 years old. I'm an 11-year-old boy, and I dream of becoming a spaceman, an astronaut. But I understand that this is impossible. In a country where I live, for refugee children, it was prohibited to go to school. Second thing, my family, and for the second time, my family makes this hard decision, again, to leave our home and to go back to our native country. So, coming home, this was the home that I left 11 years ago, and I knew nothing of it. For the first time, I entered the territory of Afghanistan, my native land, and everything is different there, and even the air is different. I try to feel it in my lungs. I'm happy that finally I'm in my home country, but this is not a long-lasting happiness. In 4 months, Talibs force my father, they demand to give my 2 elder brothers, to allow them to become the soldiers of Taliban, to actually kill their neighbors and friends. But my father disagrees. He doesn't want his sons to become killers and murderers. So he makes a hard decision. Again, leave everything and protect children once again. In 4 months, I'm 11 again, still 11, and I feel the pain of it. I feel the suffering. I feel the fear inside me. And at the border, I am separated with my father. We part. And I can't even imagine that the next time I'll see my father, 7 years will pass when we'll meet again. I have no idea of it. And that next time when dad finally sees me, he will not even know that this was me. But the worst is still about to come. Did you ever think of putting all your life in one suitcase? I tried, I could manage. So all my clothes, photos, old photos, all my stuff, I took it. But I left my childhood at the place we left. So winter, it was cold and it was an empty feeling inside. This is how I'm starting my new life in Ukraine. I still remember the feeling. Sorry, it's a little bit hard for me to work at the presentation. Hard to tackle. Okay, I'm 11, I'm not a child anymore. We have $100 in our pocket and we still have a life to live. I understood that I had no right to be weak. I was the hope of my family, but I really want my mom to hug me and my dad to kiss me in the cheek, but he's not next to me. Mom wanted us to go to school. She forced us to it, but I understood at that time that I had to work elsewhere to support my family simultaneously with the school. 1.5 years passed. I don't know where my father is and my brothers, and once there was an autumn day and I remember this first conversation with them. We all are crying. At that moment, I guess we were the happiest family. But again, it wasn't a long-lasting happiness, and then we had another problem emerging. The other problem is how to reunite the family. At that moment, we lived in Kiev, and we understood that it was hard to live in Kiev. So actually, we applied to get a permit to live in Zakarpattia in a refugee shelter. So I was studying at school and simultaneously I was trying to restore the documents for the rest of my family to reunite. When I graduated from school, I passed the test. Then I wanted to enroll to the aviation university. I successfully did it. And I didn't even pay for it. It was a happy moment, but at the same time it was sad because I understood that that I can't continue my study at the university if I don't see my dad, if I don't have this opportunity. In the end of 2016, we get finally this positive decision on reuniting of the family. I had a feeling at that time that I was watering the seeds for 7 years and finally I have the yield, finally have something growing out of the soil. And again, for the second time, I enrolled to the university. And again, I want to become a student of the National Aviation University. It's 2013. Me and my mom, we're walking around the university and I'll say, Mom, so please do take this picture and once I'll build planes. Once I will. 2021. So finally, I got my bachelor's degree. Imagine aviation and space equipment. I'm an engineer constructor. And I am entitled and I do have this full confidence to build the planes and even aircraft. Other aircraft and spacecraft. So my life was not easy, but I learned a lot. First of all, family is the most precious thing any person does have. Second thing, Second thing is about your dream or dreams. You always have to dream and act. Act no matter what obstructions may be there on your path. In the world, we have more than 82 million of IDPs. It's a huge number of people. And the whole humanity is like one big body. If one part does not feel okay, other body parts are also troubled. Therefore, we need to feel each other. We need to feel each other's pain, and we need to help each other. I think we need to believe, we need to have this faith and act. And contra spem spero. Hope without a hope. Thank you.
Дякую.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Imagine you can't actually apply for a job, you can't get married, you can't become a student, you can't vote, and many other things. This is a reality for so many people who are deprived of the status of the able-bodied person. And our following speaker used to be one. Eduard lives in a specialized institution since his birth. He was deprived of his able-bodied status when he was 18. And finally, with the help of one of the UN agencies, he managed to finally become an able-bodied citizen of the country. So, Eduard, are you with us? Yes, I'm with us. And we want to have you here on the screen. Eduard Listonov, we'd like to get you. And finally, we have you on the screen. Great. Okay, how are you? Yeah, we really can see you very well. Wonderful. We have a very high quality picture. Great. Eduard, so the floor is yours and the applause is for you as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Eduard Listonov, and I live for so many years since my birth in a specialized institution for retarded children. My mom refused for me. She left me after I was born, and she actually left me in an institution. When I was 4 years old, I was brought to Sumy region, to Bilapila town. In an institution, I have a lot of stuff I'm doing. I'm dancing, singing. I'm into embroidery a lot, icons and paintings. And I go in for sports. My favorite sport is football. So I really make very interesting movies and beautiful videos on the phone. In 2017, I was invited for a TV show, Hovorit Kyiv, Hovorit Ukraina, and they find a mom and a brother when I was 25 years old. Institutions are horrible places because they violate the human rights. We are not allowed to go elsewhere. They are not interested in our education. They ignore it sometimes. They are aggressive to us and they make us work a lot. They don't feed us properly, and products are of low quality. The staff of the institution, every day they steal products, they steal food, unfortunately. And I dreamt of going abroad. I wanted to have a family all the time and not to be alone here in institution. Many girls and boys in the institution, they are illiterate because nobody's taking care of them. And they did not get a proper care. I also wasn't provided with education. Without it, it's really hard to live autonomously without education. When people reach 18 years old, all those who live in institutions, Ukrainian institutions, must actually pass this examination if they can be recognized as able-bodied persons. A forensic examination in order to establish the status or to actually refuse to establish it. When I was 18 years old, I was brought to this forensic examination. And unfortunately, I wasn't recognized as an able-bodied person. So I simply couldn't go outdoors on my own. I couldn't actually apply for a job. I couldn't vote. I couldn't get married and many other things. I understand that I have some problems with my health, I don't know, but I'm just like other people. I'm a human being as well. Starting from 18 years old up to 29 years old, I've been living in an institution as a non-able-bodied person with that status, and I decided to start the fight for my rights. So I decided to go to journalists, to media. I asked them to come to the institution with an inspection. After the visit, the journalist visit to the institution, we had a couple of inspections, but all the time our management was prepared for these inspections and they concealed all the problems, and journalists couldn't help me with that. I didn't stop. I continued fighting for my rights. On Facebook, I found the human rights activist Tatiana Makarova from Odessa, NGO За право жити, protecting the rights of disabled people. Tatiana Makarova, her name is. I asked her to help me to bring my able-bodied status back, and she promised to help me with that. And she started fighting for me to finally become a fully capable member of the society, and she wrote a lot of letters. She applied to the court when I was 29. My mom brought me to Odessa for another examination, and thanks to my mom, thanks to Tatiana Makarova, thanks to UN, and thanks to Ombudsman's office, finally I was recognized an able-bodied person. I got the status. I'm 29 today, and right now I have a full right. I can get married. I can actually apply for a job. I can vote. I can go as a tourist elsewhere, and non-able-bodied person is deprived of all of these rights. He's just used as a thing, you know, as an object. Tatiana Makarova told me if I wouldn't be there in this system, if I wasn't there in the system, I would already graduate from the university. I really want to have an interesting life, full life. I want to have my own house. I want to get married and finally find a job. For example, being an interior designer, a decorator. So I really want you all, please don't give up. I managed to protect my rights. Please fight for your rights and you will get everything. Please, people, do believe in God, and glory to Ukraine. Thank you, Eduard. Thank you. I do hope that you get this applause. And right now we have a small break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue listening to the stories. 15 minutes of break. So at 5:10, we want you all to come back. Thank you.
Дякую тим, хто вже сів. А хто ще
I'm so
стоїть?
grateful to those who took their seats. Okay, I'm still looking at you quite sadly. We had a couple of very important speeches. And the first speaker in the second part is Yana Panfilova. Please, I wanted you all to recollect what you were at 15 and what did it look like at 16? I was still not a very good person, but Yana, at 16, she launched the Teenagizer Initiative. Its aim is to cancel the discrimination of HIV/AIDS youth. And she has a couple of successful initiatives, and that's why we all tomorrow should go to the lab and get this HIV test. Tomorrow she'll tell us, Yana, please. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yana. I'm 24 right now, and I was born with HIV. I have it since my birth. So we all mark the 76th year of UN existence. It's an important thing for us, for the civic society primarily. For 40 years already, we've been fighting this huge threat called AIDS. Still, people are afraid of those like I am. And annually, we have hundreds of people dying, not because of the virus, but social stigma and because of this fear and lack of knowledge. I am a person living with HIV, and I face a lot of challenges related to COVID. I think that mental health is not just important. Mental health is like an oxygen or water. It's actually important for your personal prosperity and for your life. When I was 10, I found out that I had HIV. I started taking my first pills to control the virus. It helps me to live the treatment, to have full life, and it helps 27 million people living all around the world. People living with HIV to have a full life. But I had another 7 years. It took me 7 years to accept that I had HIV. When I was a teenager, I had so many questions like, will I have a normal life like all other people do without HIV? When I grew up, I had horrible answers. When I was 11, my biology teacher told my class to avoid HIV people. When I was 16, a grandma of my friend called my mom, and she shouted in the phone that she had to be warned that I had HIV for me to communicate with her daughter. Then I understood that my HIV status is a big secret for many people, but not for me. My doctors communicated with my mom. And they simply wanted to delegate all this responsibility to her. Even according to the law, I simply could not individually go to the doctor without my mom because I wasn't 18. She was deciding everything on her own. And I had to look for the answers alone, and I asked Google as a doctor. I understood that millions of teenagers and young people were in the same situation as I was, so we created a synergizer. Teenagizer. So the first group for teenagers from Central Asia and Eastern Europe. During the COVID pandemic, the world changed. There are so many of us who try to cope with the loss of the beloved ones. And thanks to social distancing, we managed to cope, but still we all have this threat of domestic violence, especially those people who live in troubled families. We feel the stress, depression, we are anxious, nobody to talk to. Some can cope with that, and some start taking drugs and start getting involved in risky intimate relationship. I want to share one of the stories of one of the activists of the Teenagizer, a girl who was in coma for 7 days. She had her third attempt of suicide. It was the beginning of a pandemic. She felt isolated, threatened, alone. She had a chronic depression. She suffered from it, and still she isn't diagnosed with it. She was crying silently. She was hurting herself, but nobody to see it. So she was smiling for no one even to understand that she hates herself. So in Teenagizer, we launched a campaign, Share Your Fear, not to not to conceal the mental problems, but to provide support to young people and teenagers. Today, we have 120 consultants who are the psychologists, students of psychological departments. When Lera, that girl, when everything was fine with her and when everything like seemed to be over, I noticed that she had a depressive condition. She had no money to pay a specialist, a psychiatrist, who would talk to her without any kind of bias. She couldn't talk about it with her parents. And still, the law does not allow her to get individually this support because she's 17. She's still not 18. She can't do it on her own. So we have right now to ask ourselves, what shall we do to avoid such cases as we had with Lera? For other teenagers and young people not to suffer anymore, we have the access to hashtags like medical recipes and prescriptions. But okay, we live in families where not many accept us as we are. We are very different, but every young person has a right for health, for dignity, for respect. It doesn't matter who we are and whom we love. I don't want to dream anymore. 3 million of teenagers we have in Ukraine, and unfortunately, they are objects, not subjects. We have to unite. We have to make our future for young people, for the current generation of teenagers, and for future ones to live in a society and to build this society as a free from stigma and discrimination. And I do hope that together with you, we'll manage to do it. Thank you, and happy UN Day. Thank you. Thank you, Yana. I do hope you got the applause for you. Okay, so right now we live, I guess, pretty okay. We can order some food, book a hotel, talk to our friends, communicate with them in any way. But for people with visual impairments, this is really hard. Metro Popov is about to come here, a digitalization specialist, and he also helps companies to create services accessible for such people. He cooperates with UNDP, and it involved Metro to the Support project together with the Ministry of Digitalization with the help of Swedish government. So we'll find out, can we make internet a place fully accessible for everyone and convenient? So Metro Popov, please. You're welcome.
Добрий день, мене
Great.
звати
Hello, my name is Dmitro, and I am a big fan of innovations and technologies, but unfortunately I'm blind. So just to cover all the issues, how do you actually use computer, how these people do it actually, so how it happens. So I want you all to see how it works, okay? Okay, so this is the certificate on vaccination. You can actually, so this is the voice that directs Dmitro via Google, via Dia. Okay, so basically the voice is actually reading all the information that there is on the screen. It's pretty fast, so I can't translate everything, but it actually, here is the air flights. And for example, what you heard right now, this is a screen reader. All that quick voices. This is a program or software installed on the computer, and that's how people like me can use computers or smartphones or whatever devices they want. And I told that I'm a fan of digital technology. Well, why? Because digital gives us freedom. Imagine how people get traditionally the services, how they get it. You need to find the shuttle bus. You need to find out what the number is. You need to find a proper building, a building that you need. You need to fill out these papers, and you can't do it when you come to administrative center. You have to ask for help all the time. And digital services, you can just get it autonomously without any support, just staying at home, opening a website, click, and that's it. No support is needed. So the same thing is with some ordinary everyday stuff. I don't know, like buying products, buying food, buying anything in the shop. Traditionally, go to supermarket, ask someone, or somehow, picking it like like a lottery. What you find, you buy usually. But on the website, you can read comments, feedback. You can read the contents of the product and buy it. So this is really convenient. It's hard to exaggerate the value of this technology for blind people, but well, it's not that good as it seems to be. Still, unfortunately, there are websites which are accessible. Some of these are not. And if you didn't face it, you would never separate it. These websites may be similar for you. Internet is constantly evolving. Services become more accessible, more convenient. We have more of them. But if you talk about accessibility, we have both forward and backward movement. Once, many years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, one morning, I went to a website of the internet provider and understood that I simply can't do anything. I can't pay for my internet service just because at night they updated the website and they had this flash version. Remember that technology, Macromedia Flash? I hope you don't remember, because thanks to Steve Jobs, this technology died. It has almost died because he prohibited the use of Macromedia Flash on devices of Apple. And today it's a history already. So the situation is pretty different. And in the world, in many developed countries, digital convenience and accessibility is regulated by law. And many services are fully accessible. Not all, of course. A couple of years ago, for example, in the US, we had a case when Domino's Pizza paid $1 million of fine for their website to be inaccessible for people with visual impairment. And it shows us that truly they do take care of digital accessibility, and they try to make it accessible. In Ukraine, situation is a little worse. A couple of years ago in Ukraine, we had one delivery service, and it was fully inaccessible for us. And when they came to European market, they finally made their application accessible. Why? Because they had requirements, because in Europe they have legislation for it. And we had this case that blind people from Ukrainian customers may only start using this application only when it comes to European market, unfortunately. When it comes to commercial services and shops and delivery, well, it's more or less clear. We have competition. People vote with their money. They can pick this or other application, which is more accessible, which is better. And there is a choice. With state services, this is a little bit different situation, because state services, there is no alternative to it. And all people pay taxes, all citizens and us as well. And these had to be accessible because there's no alternative. And it seems simple, but not always like it. For example, I want to tell you about such case, such a simple thing like buying train tickets. Okay, everybody understands that this would be fully accessible, but once I had to spend many years for it. I was involved in that as well. It all started with a blind lawyer, Andriy Stehnytsky, who actually sued Ukrzaliznytsia, the company, saying that their services are not accessible for people with visual impairments. He won the case, and the court obliged Ukrzaliznytsia to make their services accessissible. But it took, I don't know, 5 years for this finally to happen. But they had just to add a couple of lines of code and spend like maybe a half of the day. But for 5 years, activists were fighting for this to be at place. And this case cannot be considered a positive case, but it actually showed us, our community, that we have to fight for our rights to use state services and to get these services from state companies paid from the state budget. A little bit later, in Ukraine, we finally had this trend being popularized for accessibility later than other countries, but finally we have it here. We have the wave, and in the government, we finally have progressive state officials. Thanks to them, we have this decree adopted for all the websites to be accessible. Unfortunately, it was related on the websites, but not for mobile applications. And as we know, the majority of services today are provided with the help of the applications via smartphones. It's really important for mobile applications also to be fully accessible for everyone. And within the last years, when we have this massive wave of digitalization, it all shows us that we have to move in that direction as well. And this year, we've had so many important events. Primarily, we now have this national strategy on avoiding barriers and destroying barriers. It was adopted, and the project on digital inclusiveness and accessibility, which supports digitalization in Ukraine. With the support of Swedish government and with the help of the Ministry of Digitalization, I do still have a hope that in Ukraine we'll launch some more. Not only the fast digitalization will take place, but the acceleration of digital accessibility for all categories. And I think it's really important for the accessibility in Ukraine not to be just a trend, but to become a routine regulated by the law. Not just for those who really want to transform their websites, do it, but for all websites and applications to be accessible. And we have to remember that internet was created as an open, free platform or space for everyone. We must take care for internet to stay as that, free for everyone, accessible for everyone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Дякую.
Great, thanks. Right now, on this stage, we'll have Alexander Vinikov. He always wanted to be an agronomist because his parents were agronomists, and he didn't want simply to grow vegetables and fruits. He wanted to open new horizons. That's why he became a scientist. But 7 years ago, everything changed in his life. Together with FAO, a UN organization, he helps other farmers, and we'll listen to him how he's saving this unique grain and why didn't he leave his Donetsk region. Alexander Vinikov. So good afternoon. Good afternoon. What is a dream? What is a vocation? What is a war? What is self-commitment? What actually unites these words? I was born in a family of agronomists, and my whole childhood was spent on field. And I remember how I was growing vegetables before I came to school. And tomatoes, I grew these for my mom for her Mother's Day on my windowsill. Well, my parents actually told me that I shouldn't become an agronomist. They didn't want me to become an agronomist. They said, okay, you live in the field, your family will suffer, you will not have any free time. But I decided, I was very determined to enter the agronomist department of the university. When I studied there, I started looking at my profession from a different perspective. I understood that I want something more than just be an ordinary agronomist. Then I bumped into a scientific paper, and I started thinking of a scientific career, and I decided to go to get my master's degree, then to continue my scientific path. Then I found out that close to Donetsk in Pisky village, there is a Donetsk State Research Station of the Academy of Sciences. And that was a perfect thing for me because this was my Donetsk region, my native land, motherland, and this was something I really wanted to have. Get deep into science. When I came to an interview, I was taken to a staff. I became a junior research fellow. I was so surprised with that. Why was it so simple? But when I only started working, I understood why. Actually, nobody wanted to become a scientist. Even today, not so many people want to be scientists because with such tiny salaries and unclear future, it actually kept young people away. But I had a dream. I had a dream. I had an aim, and I wanted to get the scientific degree. So next year, I actually became a research fellow at the Institute of Grain, and I also defended my thesis. Later, I thought that, okay, everything was okay. My worst times were over. I overcome all the challenges. I was the deputy director of the station. I started writing books. I started getting patents. I actually started my doctoral thesis. But you know, on July 18th, 2014, I was woken up not by the alarm clock, but by the shelling, sound from the shelling. I ran out of my apartment. I started running to the fields where we had people in the fields who were finishing their last preparations for the yield collection. It was about to start on that day. The fields were burning. Everything was burning. All our achievements, you know, the generations of scientists, their achievements were burning, but nobody, thank God, nobody was hurt that day. We managed to extinguish the fire, but it was really horrible. It was really threatening to stay in the village. We ran out from there, from that place on the same day. Piski still is the important strategic point location in this war, because from this village there is a direct road to Donetsk airport. You all know it was destroyed. You all know what happened there. And through our fields, the road was actually coming. So in a couple of days, me and my wife, we returned to the village to talk to military, actually for us to allow us to collect the yield. They didn't understand why we need that. You know, they told us, do you need to risk your life for crops, you know? But for us, that was not just grain, you know, that these were new varieties of various crops. This was our life. Discoveries, scientific discoveries, and these were the results of the work of so many generations of scientists. We couldn't just leave it like there in the hands of the enemy. And next day we started the work. We had 10 people in the team who started saving our station, and they actually evacuated the grain, literally. So it was really horrible. Every hour we had another round of shelling of various intensity. We were not afraid. We still continued doing what we did. At that moment, I thought that this could not last long. It will like finish by the beginning of September. The Donetsk will be free, and our home will return to our homes. We had to continue our work on our land, in our village, but unfortunately it didn't happen so. So we managed everything that we collected, we evacuated it as far as we could to our household in 100 kilometers from Piski. After we completed the evacuation in the end of November, we re-registered the Donetsk research station in Pokrovsk town, where it is located today still. But still, it was not all with our, let's say, adventures. In spring 2015, when it was time to for the new harvest, we understood that we didn't have equipment. All this selection equipment, unique equipment that couldn't be replaced. It couldn't be replaced with more typical equipment. It was left there in Piski. We had so many requests written to the ATOHQ, to the state administration. It gave us nothing. Thanks to the military people who were protecting Piski, they allowed us to take the minimum share of the functioning equipment that we needed. And we managed to sow the seeds. But the other problem that we had at that moment, again, out of 72 researchers that we had in July 2014, we had only 18 people left. And mostly of them worked remotely due to the elderly age. for us to restore the selectioning process from the scratch. And, you know, it was something incredible to revive the station. Absolutely. I remember what the selection is. Maybe not everybody understands. So selection is when you actually have the crossbreeding. You take two various plants to get a third variety, which has better characteristics comparing to its parents, let's say. And from the biology lessons, we all remember that in flowers, like, we have various parts. So when we prepare the plants for the crossbreeding from each plant, we actually take some parts and we replace it with the parts from the other plant. It sounds easy, but, you know, just replacing the parts, but it's hard. It's really hard, meticulous work. And if you want to get a unique variety, you need 5 years for one variety to appear. So we managed to create within all this time 50 different varieties. I mean, during the whole period of existence of the station. Right now we have a lot of new varieties of various crops that you can see on the screen, and we plan to have even some more in the following years. So we continue actively working as a research station. So you can see we not only restored the production capacity and we restored the staff schedule. Today we have 30 staff, 19 research fellows, so 9 PhDs and 2 doctors of sciences we have. So the science lives, the science exists, and it continues functioning, but, you know, what we've gathered at the station for 95 years of its existence, it was on the shelves in our books and documents, and we managed to evacuate it as well. All the expertise, we saved it. All our reports were saved. And we started looking for tight cooperation between us and producers in the region, and that's when FAO helped us. Together with this organization, we managed to create the NGO Eastern Ukraine Agricultural Advisory Service to provide consultations to Donbas farmers, small and medium farms, those people who were deprived of any privileges from the state or were afraid to ask for anything. Our task was to help them primarily, to help them to survive. So we help to get grant money to develop farms. We also run the trainings for such initiative as the School of Successful Farmer. We constantly try to implement various innovations in agriculture in the region, because this is the only way to save the villages in Ukraine and the residents of the villages. So what innovations we do implement, and if it does make any sense. So our technological innovations help to get 30% more yield comparing to those people use, without actually increasing the price, without increasing the expenses. And we actually now have this mobile meteorological station established that actually collects the data, important data, and we share these data with farmers, those we cooperate with. When I'm asked, was it worth putting yourself under risk, I always say yes, because at that moment I couldn't let my people down who left in the village. I couldn't just leave all that to our enemies, you know, all these achievements. My people, what they had at their work. If they would lose their work, I don't know what would happen with them. I couldn't just ignore my my work, my achievements, and the heritage of generations of Ukrainian scientists. Within these years, what are the results? What do we have today? One of the strongest scientific establishments in the system of the Academy of Sciences. So we have so many talented scientists. The respect from farmers, we do have it. The words of my small son, my little son, who once when we had dinner said that he loves the bread because his father helps to grow the bread. Thank you. Thank you for attention. Thank you. Thank you. And right now we'll have a sad number. Do you know how much time do we need to achieve SDGs? 50 years. Half a century, and that's too much. So that's why UN is partnering with business to accelerate it. And who's going to tell us about it? Tatiana Sakharuk from the UN Global Compact. Tatiana, please. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the 76th anniversary of the UN system. For me, this is a small personal victory because the Global Compact, UN Global Compact, for the first time, we're present at UN Day in Ukraine, and it means that finally business is recognized as a stakeholder for this process of changing for better. For me, it's hard to say after such inspiring stories of all the speakers that we had before me. Even a couple of times I was taking the tears from my face, because this is something that brings you out of balance. It makes you see the world from a very different perspective, because when every day you talk to the same people, you work on your routine stuff, you don't even think of it. You don't even think that around you there are so many problems and painful things people are coming through. I really love this TEDx format when people just tell. When we had the storytelling, I also prepared, so I used some sheets of paper, but anyway, I'll try to be as sincere, as open as previous speakers. So, Global Compact of United Nations, this is the youngest initiative in the UN system, emerged more than 20 years ago with the initiative of Kofi Annan, the Secretary General. They decided to establish a new let's say, block. They called it a Global Compact, so which can be used to leverage the partnership with business. Then we had only 44 companies joining us from all around the world. Today, it's the biggest initiative for sustainable business, with more than 14,000 companies all around the globe, and more than 100 million people work in these companies who joined us, who joined the Global Compact. So in Ukraine, not many of us still, 105 companies, but just within this year, we managed to get 34 new members. So we are a powerful, strong initiative to involve Ukrainian business for global problem solving. So 5 years ago, I became a member of this initiative, and my task was to relaunch the Global Compact in Ukraine. So I thought this would be quite fast, this would be really effective, that all businesses really recognize that they have to contribute, they have to invest a certain amount of money in environmental projects, social projects, and to help us to solve global problems together with government and NGOs quite fast. I took these pink glasses off and I understood that no businesses would do that just because this is a good thing. No, each business is a pragmatic system. It's not something that people told us today. It's not about specific cases or stories. It's that you need every day to make money, to pay salaries to thousands of people, to pay taxes, and also to have even to maintain your license to function in a certain area in a community. It's really a pragmatic process. And I started looking like how to attract the business, how to seduce them, what would be interesting for business to be involved. And today understand that this is not an effort of one person or one organization. These are the efforts of all the stakeholders working in Ukraine to achieve SDGs, to implement SDGs, informational space, media space that helps companies to find out that it can be in a different way. Because let's see how the history went. 100 years ago, we lived using the paradigm of economic growth. Yes, this was the key idea, the dogma for the business to emerge. Remember the Soviet times, at least I do remember, when people worked for 12 hours, for 14 hours, that was okay. 6 days per week, when we had huge impact on environment, a lot of pollution, but it was necessary for the growth, for the business to flourish. In the beginning of the 20th, in the end of the 20th century, we started realizing that, okay, that's not the way we need, but the business was growing its muscles for hundreds of years, and they can't change in a day. They can't. We need to have additional leverage, which would help to show business that you can do it the other way around. That is why in 2000, the Global Compact was born in the UN system, and it helped business to be involved in global problem solving. Informational space one, when companies, leaders can show how exactly they change inside and how these changes help to transform the whole ecosystem around. So what does it give to business? It gives a lot, because today we can see a lot of investors who really want to invest just in those initiatives which are sustainable, which are appropriate. And I think that within the next 10 or 20 years, we'll have a lot of investors, world investors will shift to this paradigm. Even in Ukraine, we can see the banking sector, which wants to invest exclusively in sustainable projects. Apart from financial motivation for businesses to be involved in global problems, we also have Western investors issue. So if a company is a public, if it is seen and visible at stock exchange markets abroad, they must report on their non-financial activity. Without it, they simply cannot get more investment from Western partners. And the price of that funding also depends on its non-financial activity as well. It's important. Then staff, employees, we all can see that young people really want not just to make money for, not just to sell their time for money, let's say, but also to have some social impact, social component. Why do I live on this planet? What for? Why do I work for this company? They ask themselves. And the companies must think, how can we retain these young people? Today, with our team, we had these presentations in more than 10 companies which joined us. They want to give their employees a sense, a feeling of sense, you know, why working in this company, what this company can do for the world, for the country, for the community, and how this company can be used by its employees to contribute to that impact. So this is a great thing. I can see those changes. 5 years ago, I entered the Global Compact. I remember myself coming from the door to door of the company. I was telling about SDGs, Global Compact. Why should it be a matter of concern? Today, when I go to my work and when I see in my social media all these reputable businesses are there with us, and we also want to be with you, and only tell us that these 5 years were not wasted. I really want to continue. I want to grow the team of young people who really want to change the world for better. I want all businesses in Ukraine to join us. Yes, I do. 105, but we expand ourselves very quickly, and I do hope that in a year we'll be able to report that we have 2.5 million of SMEs together with big businesses are a part of the Global Compact, and they work actively on solving social and environmental issues. We take everyone. Sometimes they criticize us saying that this business is not like a proper one. That business is actually violating human rights. That business is killing bees. That business is not treating birds properly. We understand that business can't change instantly. We cooperate with everyone who may help business to transform, to grow, to have a healthy growth. We want to bring these educational initiatives to Ukraine for business to be socially responsible. If we actually take the educational sector, like secondary schools, my two daughters are schoolgirls, and they are the driver of changes in my home, in my environment, that make me change my habits. It's a hard thing, but it works. I can see how they are taught at school when a teacher offers them to decorate a classroom with something with foil or balloons, and when they have this conversation with other teachers, when LGBT acceptance is discussed, and also when they have these conversations, sometimes children are said, oh, you'll grow up and you'll become employees, but nobody says that you may become entrepreneurs and move this country to a better future. They still use the methodology of 1960s, when it was told like the business of the business is business. If we take these economic schools, the only social component of the business is making money. How can we get a new generation of entrepreneurs which would think differently if we again say about money, full stop? Let's take the business community. When the preference is given to those businessmen who manage to make more money, the more money you have, the greater businessman you are. And finally, the community. The poverty of our people, and they still can't pay a premium price for premium product when we say that business sells their products as a sustainable business, which protects the human rights, takes care of environment it exists in. And that's where we need to have the support of all the media, the non-governmental organizations, the state institutions. And only with these joint efforts, we actually can move our country and world for better. And business can become a driver of the changes. Thank you. So, Global Compact, UN Global Compact. Now, 105 companies already shifted to the paradigm. We'll get the story of one of these companies, Netflix is not one of them, but we have a Ukrainian company called EFA, which supplies Netflix with a special thing, toothbrushes. Toothbrushes are special, they're out of paper. And we'll find out why for business it's important to be environmentally friendly. How can it lead you to success? Daria Kichuk. Hello, everyone. My name is Daria. And one swipe in Tinder changed my life forever. So it happened in 2017 when I was an office staff. I was proud of being an office staff, migrating between corporate giants from tech companies to agriculture and pharmaceutical companies. One morning, I don't remember what the weather was, but I woke up with one thing in my mind. Is that it? And that's it that actually is waiting for me for the next 40, 60, 70 or so years of my life. And that idea, became such, I physically felt the nastiness of that thought. And, Tinder was only becoming popular, and it really was a popular application among young people who really were trying to find someone to love or just a one-night stand. So I downloaded Tinder with one aim only, to find my prince. as a good daughter of good parents. And within the first evening, I saw him, wonderful designer with a beard, tall guy, and we have a first date. We talk about different things like on the interview, and then he tells me that he has an idea to make a toothbrush out of paper. You know, because the plastic toothbrushes, this is really horrible. You use it for 3 minutes, okay? You throw it away in a month, and it does not degrade for 500 years. It clicked in my hand. Many girls would run away saying, "Oh, I need to feed my cat." Sorry, but I don't know, what was it? Was it like an extra glass of dry wine, or the light in Ilya's eyes? He had this faith, you know, he believed in his idea. I said, let's do it together. I don't know, let's just make these toothbrushes. So we decided to do it together. The idea looks very simple, but when you start unpacking it, you have so many questions. You start giving up. You're afraid. Production, sales, distribution, team. That needs so much money. And at that moment, we had this first meeting of our AFA company, of course, after meeting Ilya. Ilya met Roman Zinchenko, the head of incubator in Ukraine. They promote green businesses called Green Incubator. And where they met, you know, in the locker room of the sport club where men can meet. So Ilya told Roman about the toothbrush. Just imagine how he wanted to implement this idea. He stuck to a man in a sport club's locker room. He told about this idea, and Roman told him that at that moment they had a selection of the national competition, the biggest world's competition for environmentally friendly innovations. So they passed the stage, the selection stage. I remember the evening when we prepared a presentation. We were studying the market. We tried to understand the perspective of its development for 5 years. How will the product look like? And then we understood that one hotel throws away 6 tons of toothbrushes every year. That's a whole white whale. Wait, then I fell in love in this idea and I believed in it. I thought this was something that had to be there. During the first public presentation of AFA Corporation, I was the one who did it. A person who was really nauseous when I heard the public speech combination, but I was so in love with that idea that I presented in such a way that we took the first place at the competition. So we packed our bags and we went to international final, and international investors were checking the startups, governments, and more experienced entrepreneurs. They were, oh, we won nothing. But we found so many new people there. We heard so many opinions from, some thought that was a great thing. Some people almost threw tomatoes at us, but we came back with an idea that AFA, if this is not a business of our life, then at least a business for a bigger part of our life. So we came to Kiev, we continued working as ordinary employees because we had to sustain somehow, and the startup was not giving us profit. What we made, we invested in the startup because we had to understand that this idea can be implemented. We wanted to understand, can you actually create a toothbrush out of paper? Then we had Costa joining us, a classmate of Ilya, and he was an engineer. He is a psycho like us, and he joined us without this wish to make profit, but with a sacred dream to change the world. And one day we will be there on Forbes cover. So March 7th, Unit City Laboratory, we had these sounds of vacuum pumps, and whoa, we witnessed the birth of the first paper toothbrush. Yes, it happened. It wasn't that beautiful, of course, but who is beautiful when he's born? But we loved it as our child. So with this idea, with this toothbrush, we came to dozen of countries, hundreds of competitions, but We were once in New York. We were picked as one of the top 10 startups. We were knocking at all the doors, each hotel presenting our startup. We knew so little of our business that it was so, it just makes me laugh when I remember what we told them. But we came back with small investment and a contract for $2 million, $2.5 million. There were 4 of us. When we returned home, I understood that I was pregnant. So we had an extended team, and the rules of the game became even more complicated. We were presenting our project by the 8th month of my pregnancy all around the world. I was talking to clients when I was in labor via phone. So when I came out of maternity ward in a car with filled with balloons and flowers with my small child, it seemed to me that you can't work more, but it seemed really cool still. We didn't want to stop, even despite this tension. One night, I had a message on my phone. I woke up an email. That was an email from Netflix. Whoa, the message said that our product was unique in the world. There's nothing like it. And they really wanted to buy our toothbrushes for all their offices. I woke up Ilya shouting that Netflix gives us a message. He says, okay, subscribe. And that was a beginning of our big future. Okay, went to California to meet them in the office, and we understood that one Netflix office uses 30,000 toothbrushes per month, because actors who go there for auditions before some kissing scenes and rehearsals, they want to clean their teeth, and that's why they have so many toothbrushes. So in California, we signed a contract with a big investor for $500,000. We came to Kyiv happy, contented, and really were motivated to move forward. It was a week before the announcement of the global pandemic, in 2020. During the whole day, we had this thought echoing in our head during the whole day. On one day, we had all contracts canceled with investor. It was torn apart. I don't remember any single day in 2020. I cried almost every day during that year. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. So then, me and Ilya, we decided to close the business. And then this thought somehow, another thought came: who would do it without us? This is just like an idea written in the notebook, or like, a stuff from our young years. The statistics of startup survival is hard. Only 1 out of 10 survives. Mostly it happens because the founders give up. When we understood it, we started working for those calls. Those calls when I was in labor, it was something really soft because I multiplied my efforts. Once we promised our idea that we will implement it, and and we promised our idea to make it come true, and I know that we'll have so many new ups and downs, but I'm not afraid anymore. When I heard Elizabeth Gilbert, that ideas just wander in the air and they only enter the heads of the most determined psychos that actually can make it come true. So the first patent for the paper toothbrush was registered in 1952. After it, we had a dozen. This idea was also in the heads of like 50 people, but nobody managed to bring it to life. Why am I saying this? If you have an idea which keeps you awake and biting your brain 24/7, maybe you are the psycho or you are the psychos who would exchange your life and your hours of your life for that. Please, if you catch this idea, just till your last breath. Don't let it out of your brain, and you'll manage it, people. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, thank you so much.
Зараз скажу, можливо, шокуючу для когось штуку.
And I'll give you a shocking
Бути молодим класно.
thing. Being young is a great thing, but there are some disadvantages. Well, for young people, it's hard to find contacts with business or government or to affect the life of the community. But we have Olga Dzerzhinska, who now knows how to correct it. Together with the UNFPA, her team implemented a project Meropolis, Youth Travel to East. Olga will tell us why it is important. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Really nice to see you all in this hall. And my name is Olga Dzerzhinska. I'm the head of the Youth Council and the Council of Young Scientists in Donetsk Regional State Administration. I have PhD in technical sciences and so many other awards and titles I do have. So since my school years, I've been into activism, and when I entered the academy, when I was enrolled to academy, I really wanted to be a leader of the students' self-government. When I had a concert, one of my concerts for students, I was approached by a boy, a first-year student, and he said, "Oля, thank you so much for believing in me. You had this faith in me. You know, you gave me such a great opportunity to take part in a concert, you know, and to show what I can do. You actually helped me to believe in myself." And then I understood that, okay, I have to help young people to develop themselves, show their strength, their energy, and to restore the faith in themselves. And since that moment, I have this motto, who will if not us? And I always aspire, I want boys and girls to not to refuse of their dreams, from their dreams, because dreams sometimes may come true, you know, it's a tricky thing. You need to believe in yourself. And actually, I've been a student, then I've been working with students, then it was community, now I contribute to the development of youth policy in my region. I want to tell you about my pride, what I'm really proud of. Youth Council in Donetsk RSA, and I'm the head of this youth council, and about our first project that actually opened the doors for us into this wonderful world of youth policy development. So Meropolis. That is, Meropolis started in 2020. And it was a huge forum with 200 people, with celebrities, representatives of civic society, bright representatives of social entrepreneurship, and leaders, males and females, leaders of powerful communities. That was a great event. And me and my team wanted to go again and again and to see these people again. In 2020, we know that due to restrictions, this forum changed the format, Meropolis, and we had it as a set of small initiatives. And Meropolis supported the initiatives from 5 communities: Trukizbenka, Severodonetsk, Kramatorsk, Solidar, and Pokrovsk. And among these great initiatives, ours was as well. It was a rowing forum. The youth is rowing. Why we had this title, Youth is Rowing? Well, because youth is rowing and growing, because youth does take care. We do take care of the problems, and we want to row in the boats and solve the problems. So during the rowing session, they were discussing various issues related to infrastructure of the communities, related to development of the health infrastructure, employment of youth, restoring the culture. And we managed to gather 20 representatives of youth councils all around the Donetsk region. And after this project, me and my team, we just, thought like, okay, why not in all communities we have youth councils. How can it happen? We decided to visit all communities, from the smallest one to the biggest, and to tell our young people that we have such a great tool as youth council, that this is a great bridge between government, business, and young people living in the community. So we came to each community and we told our peers that each of them is needed. Like, we need you. Your each vote, your each voice should be heard. And you know, this gave us so much energy. It pushed us so hard. After this travel, this trip around Donetsk region, we wanted the whole Ukraine to see that we have powerful youth potential, that we have this strength, and we aspire, we want to change Ukraine for better. That's why we changed again the format of Mirapolis, and it was Mirapolis Youth Eastern trip. The project, beautiful, magnificent. There were 2 stages. So representatives of Donetsk and Luhansk regions at the first stage, they designed the route, by the way. And in August, their peers this year, actually in August 2021, 20 young people from all around Ukraine had a chance to actually test this route. So they met these representatives of youth councils, local governance bodies. They saw how beautiful Donetsk and Luhansk regions are, what the nature is, what the culture is, that we have really picturesque places all around. And I really want you all to go to that trip virtually, and I want you to see what they saw. How do you think, friends? Where that place is, what it can be? Yes, this is Solidar. This is the place where they extract salt. You know, salt that we use for food. Very nice that you know. It's a salt mine. So 30 kilometers far from my Kramatorsk, where I was born. Very close. But I'm so ashamed that, well, for the first time I visited Solidar at that moment. Where is this place? How do you think? What that is? What it can be? This is a very small town, Chasiv Yar. And this beauty, this is Ukrainian, it's called Vetenanka. So they create it out of paper, cutting pieces out of paper with the kind of decoration, and they have wonderful quarries there as well. Look at that beautiful nature. Industrial tourism is developed there, and it's really beautiful. And how do you think? Okay, the next place where that can be somewhere. Mayake, a village with the wonderful taste of Ukrainian culture, I'd say. It's truly, it gives very nice energy. This place has a great energy. And how do you think what that is? Oh, yes, Svetohirsk, of course. This is our pearl, the pearl of the Donetsk region. This is, as we call it, the small Switzerland, so little Switzerland. So this is a very powerful spiritual place. And, you know, I'm so happy that young people finally saw the Eastern Ukraine. They actually saw it from the other side. They saw that this is not just that there's not just a military conflict in it. It's not just about warfare. It's not just about industry and heavy industry, but it's also a vibrant dynamic with young energy, that it's really beautiful and inspiring, and that it has a very strong cultural component in it. It was a big dream of a small girl called Oля. During the Mirapolis in Svetohirsk, I also saw a small girl with burning, flashing eyes, and I saw her and understood that, well, I looked into her eyes and I understood that this girl will definitely change our community, our state for better. And And it wasn't a mistake. After Mirapolis finished, she became a president of her school, leader of her self-government team, and right now she is actively involved in Bank of Youth Innovation project. This will really help the Svetogirsk community people to believe that they are important and that their voice will be heard. This is great when the children around you, these boys and girls, they do such great things. Thanks to this push, we actually move forward, we develop, and we create the projects. And you know, we have another big dream. Really want Mirapolis to become an all-Ukrainian project. For this, Mirapolis to be in each region, because we don't know much about our history and culture. We have a cool history, a cool culture. And I really want us young people to find these painful spots, heal them, make our country stronger and attractive. It's important for each boy and girl to remember about their communities. I want the eyes of each girl and boy to bring this light of change. My big question to you. What do you dream about? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And this was the last speech for today at the UN Day 2020, but definitely not the last project implemented with the UN support. And all these success stories, it's all about inspiration and action. So let's fight together. Let's move together. We'll fight not only the damn pandemic, but everything else that we want to tackle. Okay. A small task for us how to join. All speakers, please do join me at the stage for a family photo. Your round of applause, please. They do deserve it. Yeah, we all have to go to stage. The speakers, please.
Здається, зараз теж вдалий час поаплодувати.
Okay, they all see you, so it's a great chance to applaud. Okay. Okay.
Дякую. А тепер ще більший пробник того, як бути разом.
Please, you also should go to the stage because you are those who created the UN Day today and you are the guests, so please.
Дякую. День ООН завершено.
Thank you. The UN Day is officially over. See you next year.